How does a community of over 100 people, a nascent town complete with men, women, and children, simply vanish from the face of the earth? Imagine arriving at a settlement to find it completely empty, with no signs of a struggle, no bodies, and only a single cryptic word carved into a post. This isn't fiction. This is the true story of the Roanoke colony, America's oldest and most haunting unsolved mystery. The silence they left behind has echoed for over 400 years. In the late summer of 1587, a group of 115 English colonists landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. Led by their governor, John White, they were determined to establish the first permanent English settlement in the New World. This group included families, farmers, and artisans, all seeking a new life. Among them was White's own pregnant daughter, Eleanor Dare, who soon gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. They built a settlement and began their life, unaware they were standing on the precipice of oblivion. The dream of an English colony in the Americas was the ambition of Sir Walter Raleigh, a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I. He had sponsored a previous all-male military expedition to Roanoke in 1585, which had failed due to poor relations with the native tribes and a lack of supplies. This new 1587 venture was different. It was meant to be a true colony, a permanent foothold populated by families who would plant English roots in the rich soil of the New World. Their hopes were as high as the risks they were taking. Their arrival was not without immediate challenges. They had intended to settle further north in the Chesapeake Bay, but the fleet's pilot, Simon Fernandez, insisted they disembark at Roanoke. Tensions with the local Secotán and Croatoan tribes were already strained due to the actions of the previous expedition. A colonist was killed by natives shortly after their arrival, a grim omen of the fragile peace they would have to navigate in this wild and unfamiliar land. Despite the dangers, the colonists set about building their lives. They repaired the structures left by the previous expedition and began the arduous work of creating a sustainable community. The birth of Virginia Dare was a moment of profound hope, a symbol of a new beginning for the English in this vast continent. But as the summer turned to autumn, their supplies began to dwindle, and the prospect of facing a harsh winter with limited resources became a terrifying reality. With the colony's future in jeopardy, a difficult decision was made. Governor John White would return to England to gather more supplies and reinforcements. It was a journey he did not want to make, leaving behind his daughter, his newborn granddaughter, and the entire community he was tasked to lead. He departed in late August 1587, promising to return as quickly as possible. The colonists watched his ship disappear over the horizon, never imagining it would be the last English vessel they would ever see. John White's return journey was supposed to take months, but it stretched into 3 agonizing years. When he arrived in England, he found a nation in crisis, preparing for war with the formidable Spanish Armada. Every available ship was commandeered for the war effort, and civilian voyages to the Americas were forbidden. White pleaded desperately with officials, his every attempt to secure a ship and supplies for his stranded colony thwarted by the gears of war and bureaucracy. For 3 years, White was trapped in England, his mind consumed with worry for his family and the people he had left behind. What were they eating? Had they made peace with the native tribes? Was his granddaughter, Virginia, healthy and safe? The distance and the silence must have been a form of torture. Finally, in 1590, after the defeat of the Armada, he managed to secure passage on a privateering expedition, at last able to begin the desperate journey back to Roanoke. As his ship approached Roanoke Island in August 1590, on the 3rd birthday of his granddaughter, White saw a column of smoke rising from the island, a sign that filled him with hope. But as he and his landing party went ashore, an eerie silence greeted them. The settlement was gone. The houses and cottages had been carefully dismantled and taken down, not burned or destroyed. The entire area had been enclosed by a tall palisade, like a fort, suggesting they had been preparing for a threat. There were no signs of a battle. No skeletons, no graves, no evidence of a struggle or a panic departure. It was as if the 115 colonists had simply packed up their belongings, taken their houses apart, and walked away. The cannons and other heavy items had been left behind, but the people, their personal possessions, and their small boats were gone. The unsettling emptiness of the site was the first, and most profound, clue in this unfolding mystery. Then, White found the most infamous clue in American history. Carved into one of the main posts of the palisade was a single, clear word, Croatoan. Upon seeing it, White's heart must have felt a surge of relief. Before he had left, he and the colonists had agreed on a secret code. If they had to move, they would carve their destination into a tree. If they were in distress, they would carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross. Further searching revealed another, smaller clue. Carved into a nearby tree were the letters CRO. This seemed to confirm the first message. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, now known as Hatteras Island, and it was the home of a native tribe, led by Chief Manteo, who had remained friendly to the English. To White, the message was clear. His people had peacefully relocated to Croatoan Island to live with their native allies. White's investigation was tragically cut short. He was desperate to sail the 50 miles south to Croatoan Island to reunite with his family. But as they prepared to weigh anchor, a powerful hurricane, a typical feature of the late summer season, descended upon them. The storm was so violent that it snapped their anchor cable and nearly drove the ship onto the shore. The crew, a band of privateers more interested in raiding Spanish ships than searching for lost colonists, refused to risk their lives and vessel any further. Against White's frantic protests, the captain turned the ship around and headed back to the open sea. They made a brief, failed attempt to winter in the Caribbean before ultimately sailing back to Europe. John White would never again have the funds or the opportunity to return to the New World. He died years later in England, never knowing the true fate of his daughter, his granddaughter Virginia Dare, and the 115 souls of the lost colony. His investigation ended in failure, leaving the mystery to fester. For over 400 years, the question has remained: what happened to the colonists? The most widely accepted and logical theory is that they did exactly what the message suggested. They assimilated with the Croatoan people on the nearby island. Life in the 16th century wilderness was brutal, and joining a tribe that knew how to survive in that environment would have been their best chance. It's possible they gradually intermarried, and their English culture slowly faded over generations. There is circumstantial evidence to support this theory. Later explorers and settlers in North Carolina, including John Lawson in the early 1700s, reported encountering native people on Hatteras Island who claimed to have ancestors that were white. Some had gray eyes and lighter hair, physical traits uncommon among the native population but consistent with English heritage. They seemed to have a familiarity with European customs and language, adding weight to the stories of assimilation. Modern efforts like the Lost Colony DNA Project are attempting to trace genetic links between living descendants of the Croatoan and other local tribes and descendants of the colonists' families back in England. While no definitive link has been proven yet, the search continues, representing a fascinating intersection of historical mystery and modern science. The answer may not be in the soil of Roanoke, but in the very blood of the people living in the region today. A second, more violent theory suggests the colonists were attacked, and either wiped out or scattered by a hostile native tribe. While the Croatoan were friendly, other tribes in the region were not. The colonists' relationship with the Croatoan tribe had been particularly poor. It's possible that, weakened by famine or disease, the colonists became an easy target. The dismantled houses could have been the result of natives salvaging materials after the attack. This theory gained some credence from the accounts of the later Jamestown colonists, who settled in Virginia in 1607. Captain John Smith reported hearing stories from the powerful Chief Powhatan, who claimed to have personally led an attack on a group of white people living with another tribe, wiping them out just before the Jamestown settlers arrived. This could have been the Roanoke colonists, who had perhaps moved inland and settled in the Chesapeake region as originally planned. Another grim possibility is that the colonists simply succumbed to the harsh realities of their environment. Tree ring data taken from the Roanoke area has revealed that the colonists arrived during the most extreme drought in the region in over 800 years. This would have led to massive crop failures and a scarcity of fresh water, resulting in famine and disease. They may have starved, died of illness, or scattered in small, desperate groups in search of food, with none surviving the ordeal. A tantalizing and controversial set of clues emerged in the 1930s with the discovery of the Dare stones. The first stone, found by a tourist, was inscribed with a message allegedly written by a leaner white Dare, detailing the colonists' plight of sickness and death and their move inland. It sparked a treasure hunt that led to the discovery of dozens more stones, telling a dramatic story of the colonists' journey across the country. However, nearly all of these stones were later exposed as an elaborate hoax. While the Dare stones were largely debunked, the first stone has never been conclusively proven to be a fake, leaving a sliver of mystery. For many researchers, however, the real breakthrough came not from a stone but from a map. A 16th century map of the region, drawn by John White himself and now housed in the British Museum, held a secret that was hidden for centuries. Using advanced imaging techniques, researchers discovered two patches on the map. Under one patch, located about 50 miles inland from Roanoke, up the Albemarle Sound, was the symbol of a fort. This was a stunning discovery. It suggested that the colonists had a secondary plan, a location to move to on the mainland that they intentionally concealed on the map. The location, dubbed Site X, became the new focus of archaeological investigation. Excavations at Site X, led by archaeologists like Mark Horton and the First Colony Foundation, have yielded incredible finds. They have unearthed a significant amount of English pottery from the 1580s, the same type used by the Roanoke colonists, intermingled with native artifacts. The sheer quantity and type of these artifacts strongly suggest a small group of colonists lived at this site for some period of time, likely integrating with a friendly local tribe. This archaeological evidence provides the strongest support, yet, for a version of the assimilation theory. It seems highly probable that the colonists did not stay on Roanoke Island. Instead, they likely broke into smaller groups. One group may have gone south to Croatoan Island, as the carved message indicated, while another group, perhaps the one containing the Dare family, moved west to Site X on the mainland. They didn't just vanish, they relocated. The breakthrough of Site X reframes the entire mystery. It's no longer a simple question of what happened on Roanoke Island, but rather a more complex story of survival, migration, and cultural assimilation. The colonists weren't just victims. They were resourceful people actively trying to survive in a difficult environment by seeking refuge with their native neighbors. The mystery is not one of disappearance, but of where they went and what became of them. The immediate aftermath of John White's failed 1590 expedition was silence. England's attention turned elsewhere, and for nearly 2 decades, no official attempts were made to find the lost colonists or establish a new colony. The story of Roanoke became a ghost story, a cautionary tale about the dangers of the New World that haunted Sir Walter Raleigh and the English crown. The failure at Roanoke had a profound impact on the next English colonial venture, Jamestown, in 1607. The Jamestown settlers were acutely aware of the fate of their predecessors. They actively searched for survivors and questioned the native tribes about the lost colony, which led to the stories from Chief Powhatan. The specter of Roanoke instilled a sense of fear and paranoia in the early Jamestown settlers, shaping their often brutal interactions with the native population. The consequence for the colonists themselves, assuming they survived and assimilated, was the gradual erosion of their English identity. Over generations, their language, customs, and religion would have blended with and eventually been subsumed by the native culture surrounding them. They would not have vanished in a moment of violence, but faded slowly over time, their English roots becoming a distant memory in the oral traditions of their new families. The aftermath for history was the creation of a perfect mystery. The lack of a definitive answer, the single cryptic clue, and the tragic story of John White combined to create a narrative that has fascinated and frustrated researchers for centuries. The absence of a conclusion has allowed countless theories to flourish, turning the historical event into an enduring piece of American folklore. The legacy of the lost colony of Roanoke is its status as the foundational mystery of America. It is a story that speaks to the fundamental questions of the nation's origins, a tale of hope, hardship, and a profound, unsettling unknown. It reminds us that the first chapter of the English experience in America is not a story of conquest, but one of disappearance. The case has had a lasting impact on archaeology and historical research in the United States. The ongoing search for the colonists has pushed the boundaries of technology, from the advanced imaging used to uncover the secret on White's map to the genetic analysis of the DNA project. It is a cold case that is still very much active, with new discoveries continuing to reshape our understanding of what might have happened. In popular culture, Roanoke has become a shorthand for any mysterious disappearance. It has inspired countless books, television shows, and movies, ensuring its place in the collective consciousness. The story of 100 people vanishing into the wilderness is a primal fear, and the word Croatoan has become one of the most chilling and evocative words in the English language. The search for answers continues today. Archaeologists at Site X and on Hatteras Island continue to dig, hoping to find the definitive proof, a European grave or a cluster of artifacts that will finally solve the puzzle. Historians continue to pore over documents, and genealogists continue to trace bloodlines. The mystery of the lost colony is a collaborative effort, a puzzle being assembled piece by dedicated individuals. And so, we are left with the lingering question. What truth does the word Croatoan really hold? Was it a simple destination marker for a group of survivors seeking refuge? Was it a warning, misunderstood by those who found it? Or was it an epitaph, the last word of a community before it was absorbed by the vast, wild continent it had tried to tame? The final truth of what happened to the men, women, and children of Roanoke may be lost to time, but their story, the story of the lost colony, will never be forgotten.